As Corvida lunges towards me, a murderous glint in her eyes, I brace myself, preparing to fight for my life. I can feel the cold chill of fear creeping up my spine, but I steel my resolve, focusing on the words that Helena and I had poured over in the grimoire. Our plan was to corner Corvida in her lair, but I hadn't anticipated Helena being taken out so quickly. I can see her crumpled form out of the corner of my eye, and a surge of panic washes over me. I'm alone, facing off against a centuries-old witch. The fight is grueling, exhausting. Corvida is strong, her magic dark and potent. She throws curses and hexes my way, and I dodge and weave, trying to keep up. I can feel my energy waning, my movements slowing. I'm not sure how much longer I can hold on. Suddenly, I hear a faint whisper in my ear.
Let it happen.
Helena's voice echoes in my mind. I falter for a moment, confusion clouding my thoughts. Let what happen? My death? I can't make sense of her words. But then, it hits me. Helena's strategy has always been about the long game, about sacrifices and moves that may not make sense in the moment but pay off in the end. With a heavy heart, I drop my guard and brace myself for what's coming. Corvida cackles, a sound that echoes around the cave, raising goosebumps on my skin. Then, with a swift motion, she lunges, her form shifting into a raven, and pierces my heart. Pain explodes through my body, and my vision goes white. Then, everything goes dark. I died. With a gasp, I suddenly jolt awake, taking in lungfuls of fresh air. My heart pounds wildly in my chest as I sit up and look around. My surroundings are a blur at first, but as my vision clears, I find myself back in the lush canopy of trees, the smell of moss and damp earth filling my nostrils. I turn to find Helena propped up against a tree, her face pale but wearing a smug grin.
You always were a sucker for a good dramatic death scene.
She quips, winking at me. But I thought. I stammer, still reeling from what I thought was my end. I glance down at my chest, expecting to find a wound, but my shirt is intact, not a single scratch on me.
Well, let's just say I played a little trick on our feathered friend.
Helena chuckles, dusting off her robe.
One of the benefits of being a witch. A few illusions here and there go a long way. And while she was busy killing you, I managed to slip the pendant around her neck.
I gape at her, stunned. She had planned this all along, but hadn't clued me in. It's then I realize there's a lot I have yet to learn about magic, and about Helena Blythe. As my pulse begins to steady, a new determination sparks within me. I might not be a seasoned anthropologist or a cunning witch, but I've got fight in me. And this fight is far from over. Dazed and trying to process what just happened, I shook my head to clear the cobwebs of confusion. That was too easy, I muttered, still feeling the residual phantom pains from the nightmare Corvida had crafted for me. Almost as if she wanted us to
win?
Helena completed the sentence, a grave look on her face. She pulled herself to her feet, brushing off the forest debris from her clothes.
I agree. It seems suspicious.
A shiver ran down my spine. The sensation of being watched was hard to ignore. Turning to look around, my eyes met those of a lingering undead. It was hiding amongst the shadows of the trees, its malevolent gaze fixed on us. A feeling of dread spread through me like wildfire. It was the eyes of a predator locked on its prey.
She's still watching us,
Helena added softly, following my gaze. Her hand absent-mindedly clutched the locket that held obsidian.
We haven't seen the last of Corvida, and she'll likely be far more cunning and dangerous in our next encounter.
The thought sent another shiver down my spine. But I knew she was right. The easy victory was likely a ruse, a trap to make us let our guard down. And it had worked. The real battle was yet to come, and we needed more than just magic to face it. We needed information, a game plan, and we needed it fast.
Which is why I think it's time we sought some expert help.
Helena finally said, breaking the silence. Her gaze shifted back to me.
We're heading for Dominic Van Doren, the famed vampire hunter. He's an old acquaintance, and one of the few people with the expertise we need to face Corvida.
And with that, our next course was set. We were off to find Dominic Van Doren, a new ally in our fight against the resurrected witches. Are you sure we're going the right way? I asked Helena as we continued our trek through the dark, dense forest. Her pace was steady, her gaze forward. Not once did she seem to second-guess her path.
We're headed towards Dominic Van Doren's hideaway, a place teeming with the macabre and cryptic.
Helena explained, her tone matter-of-fact.
Dominic is an expert in hunting the occult. He's faced vampires, werewolves, demons, and even the undead. If there's anyone who can help us defeat Corvida, it's him.
She then delved into her ideas about confronting Corvida, expressing the importance of targeting the source of her power. We need to sever the connection between her and her necromantic creations. The swarm of undead that roamed Gallows End were puppets dancing on Corvida's strings. Can the people of Gallows End return? I asked, worried for the victims of the witch's dark magic.
Those affected by the undead's curse. It's a form of necromancy. They are not alive. They are simply bodies being puppeteered by dark magic. Once we stop Corvida, the spell will break, and they will return to their rest.
She replied. The reality of her words sunk in. There would be no happy ending for those lost to Corvida's magic. Her words lingered in the air, casting a somber cloud over our journey. But with our new ally Dominic and our determination to end the witch's reign, feeling eyes on us from the shadows, Helena paused and turned to the undead creature that had been trailing us, spying for Corvida. She spoke in a soft voice, uttering an incantation that seemed to dance on the wind, reaching out towards the undead.
Severum nex vinctus.
Helena incanted. The words echoed in the quiet woods, and a silver glow enveloped the creature. Its eyes, once brimming with a ghoulish green light, slowly dimmed until they were as vacant as a long-abandoned house. As the undead creature collapsed to the ground, lifeless once again, I couldn't help but be struck by the stark contrast of life and death. Here was a creature, once a person with dreams, hopes, and fears, reduced to a mere puppet in a game of supernatural power. I found myself reflecting on the cycle of life and death. Was it crueler to live, knowing that we all must eventually face death? Or to die, only to be brought back, enslaved to the whims of a dark force? Perhaps, in the end, death was not the ultimate fear, but rather the fear of a life unlived. As we moved further into the woods, the ghostly whispering of the trees gave way to the low hum of human activity. We approached a small hideaway tucked against a cliffside. Though small, it was fortified with intricate traps, salt lines, and symbols etched into the rock. Signs of someone who knew the supernatural world well. An imposing figure stepped out from the shadows of the hideaway, his weathered face partially hidden beneath a wide-brimmed hat. He was built like a mountain, with a broad chest and arms that could easily wrestle a bear. His steely gaze was sharp and alert, focused on us with a mix of curiosity and suspicion.
Dominic Harrow.
Helena greeted, with a nod of respect. In the cool, indifferent tone of a man who's seen it all, Dominic replied,
Helena Blythe.
I was instantly struck by the air of authority that clung to Dominic like a second skin. His presence was like a seasoned general commanding a battlefield, and I felt a surge of hope that with him on our side, we had a real chance of defeating the sisters. My mind raced with questions about Dominic, his experiences, and how he'd come to hunt the supernatural. But those were questions for another time. For now, we had to plan and prepare for the challenges that lay ahead. We had one sister trapped and two more to deal with, As we stepped into the rustic interior of Dominic's hideaway, he cast me a sidelong glance that bordered on disdain.
So, you're Helena's new pet?
He grumbled, taking in my scholarly attire with a raised eyebrow. More of a partner. I defended myself, my cheeks heating under his scrutiny.
Is that so?
Dominic smirked, a twinkle of amusement in his eyes. Helena intervened before I could retort, her voice cutting through the brewing tension.
Enough banter, Dominic. We've managed to trap one of the sisters of the Ebony Veil,
she declared, the gravity in her tone pulling his attention back to the task at hand. His reaction was unexpected. He threw back his head and laughed. A hearty, booming sound that filled the hideaway.
Which one did you nab?
He finally managed, wiping a tear from his eye.
The oldest, the darkest, or the hottest of the three?
Obsidian,
Helena said flatly, unamused by his jest.
Ah,
Dominic sighed, his mirth fading into seriousness.
the seductress. That's a start.
Continuing the conversation, Helena began to explain the ruse that Corvida had deployed, the nature of the sisters, and the knowledge we had garnered thus far. Dominic, pouring himself a cup of something strong from an unmarked bottle, listened with a grimace, occasionally nodding to show he was following.
And so, what's the grand plan?
He eventually asked, fixing us with a hard stare over the rim of his cup.
And more importantly, what do you expect from me?
It was Helena who responded.
That's exactly why we're here, Dominic.
She explained, her tone unyielding.
We're hoping you can help us formulate a plan. You have experience we lack.
Dominic sighed, setting his cup down with a loud thud.
You know I've got my hands full, right?
He complained, running a hand through his graying hair.
Vampire activity has spiked recently. I'm not exactly twiddling my thumbs here.
He shot me a warning look.
And witches,
He added grudgingly.
aren't my strong suit.
Despite his reluctance, I could tell he was considering it. His eyes had that thoughtful look, the one I'd seen in the eyes of my professors when they were posed with an intriguing question. Taking a long sip from his cup, Dominic leaned back in his chair, considering Helena's request.
Witches aren't my speciality,
He repeated, as if to himself.
but I've been around the block a few times. I've seen things. Heard things.
He glanced at Helena, then back at me.
Corvida, the Raven, mistress of illusions and death. You can't just rush her head on. You tried that already and see where it got you.
I could feel my cheeks heat at his remark, but I held my tongue. Now is not the time for pride, Dominic continued.
She's cunning. She'll use illusions, play on your fears, exploit your weaknesses. You can't trust anything you see, hear, or even feel when you're dealing with her. But
He paused, leaning forward in his chair, his gaze sharp.
there might be a way. You can't trust your senses, but you can trust your instincts, your gut. You need to center yourself, be in tune with your inner self. Only then will you be able to discern reality from her illusions.
He pointed a finger at Helena.
And you need to prepare counterspells, spells that can disrupt her magic, cause her to lose focus. If she's distracted even for a moment, that might give you a chance to strike.
He leaned back again, draining the last of his cup.
It's a dangerous plan, but it's the only one I can think of. As for the undead, if you sever their connection with Corvida while she's distracted, they'll be free. And that will be your ultimate victory.
As Dominic's words hung in the air, my mind began to whirl, skimming through the countless pages I've read in Helena's library. A particular ritual came to mind, one that was described in a barely legible, ancient tome I'd perused one night. It involved the muting of the senses to amplify the instincts, a dangerous and complex spell that required meticulous preparation and a considerable toll on the caster. But the ritual came with a caveat. Its effects were limited to a small window of time. It would be an arduous task to undertake, especially with the impending threat of Corvida and her undead minions. Yet, as I looked at Helena and Dominic, I knew that the price we pay for failure would be far worse than any physical or magical strain. As I shared the details of the ritual with them, I could see both interest and concern flicker in their eyes. I realized then that my journey as a scholar, my long hours spent in the library, had not been in vain. Here I was, proposing a possible solution, contributing to our cause in a way that only I could. And although the path ahead was fraught with danger and uncertainty, I felt a strange sense of calm. I was not alone in this fight.
Well, seems like you anthropologists have the battle of your lives lined up.
Dominic finally declared, breaking the silence.
Prepare well. You'll need every bit of magic and wits you can muster.